The chamber of the High Court stood silent as the trial finished, and the guards marched the human warrior Rowan forward to receive the final command of the alien queen. Lyra. The tall crystalline walls shimmered with pale light, and all eyes watched the human whose actions had saved their world only days before. That day had cost him far more than anyone else had dared to give, for he had thrown himself before 5 blades meant to end Lyra's life, and the memory still echoed inside every witness. Now he walked with a slow step, breath steady, gaze calm, as if his mortal wound had been nothing more than a passing inconvenience. No one understood how a human body could survive that damage, but humans were known for surprising the galaxy. Queen Lyra watched him approach from her throne carved of living stone. Her people had long believed humans were strange and unpredictable, but also too chaotic to be trusted. Rowan had proven that belief outdated. His sacrifice had shattered her council's doubts and had carved his name into the hearts of her citizens. Still, she looked upon him with something the others did not see, for Rowan had not taken the blow because of duty alone. She sensed a deeper reason in him, and she struggled to understand it. Rowan bowed. His armor was still cracked from the blades that had pierced it. Lyra felt a pain in her chest each time she saw the marks. The healers had used every method of their science to keep him alive, yet he had remained motionless for many cycles. Only now had he awakened and demanded to walk to her chamber in person. The guards stepped back. The counselors whispered among themselves. Rowan lifted his head and spoke with a quiet voice that filled the room. "My queen, I am ready for your judgment." Lyra rose from her throne. Her posture was regal, yet her expression held a rare softness. "There is no judgment for you," she said. "There is only gratitude." Rowan seemed to relax, though only slightly. He was a soldier of Earth's far colonies, and had seen too many courts where gratitude meant a medal and then a quiet exile. But Lyra was different. He sensed sincerity in her tone. "You saved me," she continued. "You saved this city. You turned the tide of the war before it began." Rowan shook his head. "I acted as any warrior should. No warrior should take 5 blades meant for another." Lyra stepped closer. "Not even for a queen." Rowan wanted to answer, but a sudden dizziness washed through his mind. The floor shifted. The room blurred. Lyra's voice became distant. He felt the world tilt, and before the guards could reach him, he collapsed. The healers rushed him to the sanctuary wing. Lyra followed with rapid steps, abandoning her usual calm. She remained near the door as they placed Rowan into a healing cradle shaped of woven energy. Strange symbols flickered around him as the machines worked to stabilize his body once more. Healer approached Lyra and whispered, "His mind is unstable. The blades struck not only his body, but his life pattern. He may see visions or shifts of perception." Lyra dismissed no possibility. Humans were famous for surviving the impossible, only to face stranger consequences later. She remained by the cradle for hours until the healers urged her to rest. She agreed only when they promised to alert her the moment he awoke. When she finally returned to her private chamber, she tried to rest, but sleep never came. She felt a strange pull within her thoughts, as if something waited to unravel. She sensed Rowan's mind reaching toward hers across the palace. She tried to ignore it, but her heart refused. She rose again and walked toward the sanctuary. As she neared the corridor, she noticed 2 guards staring at the entrance with wide eyes. "My queen," one guard said, "there is something inside you must see." Lyra pushed open the door. Then she froze. Rowan sat upright in the healing cradle. His eyes were open and aware, but that was not what silenced the room. There were 2, Lyra standing beside him. Both queens had identical posture, identical clothing, identical markings upon their skin. Both carried the same expression of shock. One stood to Rowan's left. The other stood to his right, and Rowan looked utterly confused. Lyra felt her heart strike her ribs with force. She stared at the other version of herself and felt the same. Astonishment reflected back. The healers whispered among themselves like frightened birds. A phenomenon like this had no recorded history among their species. They could mimic forms, alter shapes, even project illusions, but this was no illusion. The second Lyra breathed. She blinked. She had a pulse. She reacted to her surroundings with the reflexes of a living person. Rowan rubbed his temples. "I thought I was hallucinating," he said. "But you're both real." The Lyra, who had left to rest, approached cautiously. "I am Lyra, Queen of the Crystalline Quartz." "Who are you?" The other Lyra stepped forward. "I am Lyra, Queen of the Crystalline Quartz. I am the one who stayed beside him in the waking dream." Rowan blinked. "The what?" The second Lyra looked confused as well. "I do not fully understand. When he fell unconscious after the trial, he drifted between life patterns, and I felt a part of myself pulled into his mind. When I tried to reach him, something strange happened. I found myself standing in the sanctuary beside him, but my body was also in my chamber. Then I realized the self in his presence had become real." The first Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean his unstable mind created a duplication of our essence?" The second Lyra nodded. "It appears so." Rowan let out a slow breath. "So now there are two of you." Both queens nodded. Silence filled the sanctuary. No one dared move. Rowan tried to sit up further, but the healers pushed him back gently. Lyra stepped closer. "Rowan," she said, "when you took those blades from me, our life patterns touched. Our people have known for ages that deep acts of sacrifice can create lasting bonds between minds. But never like this." Rowan swallowed. "So my brain accidentally created a second queen." The second Lyra frowned. "Not merely your brain, your will. Your instinct to protect. You reached toward me with such strength that my essence divided to answer." The first Lyra crossed her arms. "But now this creates a problem. Our people cannot have two queens." Rowan glanced between them. "Is that really a problem? You both seem very capable." The healers exchanged anxious glances. Lyra's species followed a strict rule of singular rule. One queen. One voice. One leadership bond to the core crystal of their planet. If two queens existed, their traditions would collapse. The first Lyra looked at her duplicate. "We must determine which of us is the original essence connected to the core crystal." The second Lyra frowned. "I feel the bond as strongly as you do." Rowan sighed. "So you are identical in every way that matters." Both queens nodded again. The council was summoned. Their shock matched the rest of the palace. They circled the two queens like scholars inspecting a miracle. Some whispered fear. Some whispered awe. And some whispered suspicion. Not one counselor pointed at Rowan. "This human has caused a disruption in our royal essence. He should be separated from both queens until we understand the danger he poses." Both queens stepped in front of Rowan at the same moment. Their voices rose in harmony. "No one will touch him." The counselors recoiled. The two queens exchanged a glance, surprised that they had acted identically. Rowan blinked. "So I am not the only one seeing the problem here." Lyra turned to him. "You are a part of this now. You share the bond that created us in this form." Rowan exhaled slowly. "So what do we do?" The queens exchanged another look. The first Lyra spoke. "We must return to the core crystal. Only there can we understand the truth." The second Lyra agreed. "If we stand before the core together, it may reveal the balance between us." Rowan pushed himself up carefully from the cradle. His body still hurt from the blades, but he refused to remain behind. "I am coming with you." Both queens nodded. The journey to the core chamber took them deep beneath the palace. The air grew colder, and the crystal walls shimmered with faint blue light. Rowan walked between the two queens, aware of how surreal the situation felt. Two identical rulers. Two identical voices. Two identical presences that moved with perfect grace. They entered the chamber. The core crystal stood at the center, like a giant heart of glowing stone. Its energy pulsed through the floor. Both queens approached slowly. The crystal responded instantly. Light surged. The chamber trembled. Rowan shielded his eyes as energy wrapped around the queens. Two beams of light reached outward and scanned them from head to toe. Then, the chamber grew still. The crystal dimmed. Both queens turned to Rowan. "We share the bond equally," the first Lyra said. "We are both true queens," the second Lyra added. Rowan blinked. "So the crystal accepts both of you." They nodded. The council stood speechless. No law existed for this event. No tradition prepared them. But the crystal had spoken. Their entire culture revolved around its approval. If it accepted the existence of two queens, then the council had no authority to deny it. The first Lyra stepped closer to Rowan. "Your sacrifice did more than save my life." The second Lyra mirrored the action. It reshaped destiny. Rowan felt overwhelmed. What happens now? The two queens exchanged a final look, then smiled at him with the same expression. "You stay by our side," they said together. Rowan stared. "Both of you want that?" "Yes," they said. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I never expected something like this when I jumped in front of those blades." The first Lyra touched his arm. "You acted without thought. That is the purest form of loyalty." The second Lyra touched his other arm. "And the purest form of courage." Rowan swallowed. "So two queens have D.